More medications, less health. Something's broken. Traditional medicine manages symptoms, but true healing addresses root cause. I'm Josh Rimany, pharmacist turned healer. At Beyond the Pills, we merge ancient wisdom with modern-day science to inspire you through stories of transformation, practical trainings, and holistic healing. Join me and other practitioners as we guide you towards vibrant health, body, mind, and spirit, and move beyond symptom management into true healing. Welcome back to Beyond the Pills, where we explore the intersection of ancient wisdom and modern science to uncover what true healing really means, body, mind, and spirit. Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Rimany, pharmacist turned healer and modern-day medicine man. Today, our guest brings us back to something both ancient and urgently needed in our modern world, our relationship with nature. Jared Pickard, along with his wife, Velisa, is the founder of Be Here Farm and Nature, a biodynamic farm and experiential wellness brand located in Wimberley, Texas. At Be Here Farm, they grow and handcraft a collection of artisanal skincare products in a truly unique way, one rooted in biodynamic principles, reverence for the land, and the rhythms of nature. Beyond the farm, they create and curate luxury wellness and nature immersions around the world, inviting people to slow down, reconnect, and remember what it means to be human. Jared is also the co-host of Being Human, a 12-week online self-mastery program, which we will talk about, inspired by the teachings of Rudolf Steiner, designed to help people cultivate inner clarity and presence and purpose in a noisy world. At the heart of Jared's work is simple but profound truth. Nature and connection may be the most needed and freely available medicine of our time. Welcome to the show, Jared.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here.
Man, I love our connection calls prior to podcast because we instantly connected because when people say the same things you've been saying, it's like, yes, let's talk and go deep dive on that more because I want other people's perspective. So take us back about like this path to the farm. What was your path that led you and your wife to create what is going on today? We had an awesome conversation about it. I just want you to bring this out to the awareness of people.
Yeah, I'm just choosing where to start because it feels very circular at this point. I could almost start anywhere. I guess the first thing I want to say is that the brand story is a reflection of our personal story. So there was a time when I was working in what would have been more like my family business, which was on Wall Street. I was working on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, and I had some budding dreams around agriculture and food and nature. Mostly they were coming from books I was reading. At this time, the thing that really sparked it was I was living in Brooklyn at the time, and it was 2007, and there was a huge explosion of, let's call it, the farm to table food scene. And there were all of these butcher shops and restaurants and artisan markets, and all interconnected with these small farms outside of the city. And it was a real sort of revolution in that way, because I think there was a Whole Foods, but like people's awareness of food quality was not nearly as developed as it is today. And so this was a huge awakening for me personally. At the same time that this was happening, I was exposed to a set of teachings by a man named Paul Chek. And he has these 4 foundational teachings that he calls the 4 doctors. And it's Dr. Diet, Dr. Quiet, Dr. Movement, and Dr. Happy. And those are the 4 categories through which, one breaks down really their entire life, especially in particular as it relates to health. But it becomes your entire life because sort of the main motor of this system is what he calls the dream line. So you have to identify what it is that is your dream in life. And then You create values in the 4 doctor categories to do what he says, what he calls walking down your dream line. And so it really did become my whole life. And a major part of one of the 4 quadrants is Dr. Diet. So at this very time that the sort of Brooklyn farm to table food scene is exploding, I learned about, through these teachings, organic food for the first time. And I had been, raised with fitness and health in mind. My mom was a personal trainer, but the information of the 90s was a little bit backwards from what people consider healthy today. So I was eating like reduced fat, highly processed foods like margarine and egg beaters and Snackwell's cookies.
Where it all came from, right?
Yeah. And so I
Nice.
actually, I became pretty obese actually. And so at this time, I start learning about food and healthy farming practices and all these things for the first time. And I start seeking it out, and I get a tremendous sort of change in my whole life experience. I start developing these new hobbies. I learn about meditation, like I dive into the Czech practices. And so all these things happen at the same time. And basically New York City spit me right out to this farming apprenticeship. I quit my job on the floor of the stock exchange. I took on a biodynamic farming apprenticeship in rural Georgia. And I was outside of Athens, where there's a large university. So there was a population of people there, University of Georgia. But I was living out in the rural area, 15 minutes away, next to this hog and cattle farm, where I learned how to raise those animals on rotational grazing pastures. And I learned how to grow some fruits and vegetables. And that was a 2-year period before we basically got further inspired on this journey. So when you're asking me, like, how did I get to where we are today? It's not like we're a farm. I don't even consider us that, even though farm's in the name, because it's more of a garden, first of all, and we consider our property a homestead. It's not like a commercial, open to the public production farm. We grow in the garden ingredients for our collection of products, which we could talk more about later, and just for our own personal lifestyle. And so this all sort of ties together in a way, which is that we became inspired to share this dream that we were sort of budding within ourselves, which was to live more deeply in connection with nature. That was really the essence of all of these things tied together for me to realize that I was living in New York City, that I had never been on a farm, that I had rarely spent any time in nature for most of my life. My outdoor time in my youth was spent in like rec sports, playing lacrosse, football, soccer. We don't need to go down this rabbit hole, but like those are pesticide laden monocultures that are not even that healthy of an environment. But like, thank God I was outside. But I didn't spend time in like the deep woods or hiking in the mountains or getting my fingers in healthy living soils, and certainly not growing and eating food that I had grown. So when all of these different compounding things came together, we developed this concept, which we called Be Here, Farm and Nature. And its original intention was actually to be a hospitality destination. So along with the support of family members, we moved out to California. This journey is taking us now from New York to Georgia. I skipped a chapter in Tennessee where we dedicated a year to studying hospitality at this place called Blackberry Farm, which is...
I know it very well.
Yeah, for those who don't, it's a world-class resort that is based on a farm on a very large rural property in the Smoky Mountains, in the Appalachian Mountains, Appalachian foothills, I think they call it. And this was all of these different changes, going to Georgia, going to Tennessee, they were all leading up to sort of what we thought would be the ultimate change, which was we purchased land out in Sonoma, California, and we were intending to develop what, if you had to just give it one word, you'd call it a hotel, but we never really called it that. And in as brief as I possibly can describe it, it was a 300-acre, what we called a nature sanctuary. It was this land that was not really desirable to the other people in the area because the area is world famous for wineries. And this land was super steep and densely forested. And so it was sort of like almost a marginal piece of land. But what it actually was just unspoiled wildlands where we had mountain lions and bears and all sorts of different, coyotes and foxes and so many deer and so many birds of prey. It was just like living so deep out in the wild. And we were developing 9 cottages, a restaurant, a spa, and an entire overnight hospitality experience, which was designed to sort of deliver on that dream we had, which was to live in connection with nature and to share that with people. I'm blowing through literally 12 years of my life right now to get to the point where.
Well, you're doing great, because we only started 9 minutes ago, so you're doing beautifully.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just like I feel like it's a little bit dry because I'm blowing through some of like the most exciting chapters of my life that each one could be its own podcast episode. But I'm sort of building towards this anticlimax of all of these efforts, which were tremendous wildfires in 2020. And so the project that we had spent at this point, by the time it gets to 2020, because we started in 2007 with that farming apprenticeship, by the time it gets to 2020, I had spent a significant percentage of my life. I'm only 41 today. So I had spent a third or a quarter of my life at this point working towards what we thought was opening up this hotel called Be Here Farm and Nature. When historic wildfires burned down the entire region, honestly, but certainly our mountain. And the fire maps are pretty stark, because we shared it on Instagram at one point. So I saw it not that long ago. I scrolled all the way back, but the fire map is this huge blob, thousands and thousands and thousands of acres. Our property could not be any more in the center of it. It was like a bullseye. And so many of the homes and wineries on our rather unpopulated block, there was only a dozen or so families and wineries that were on this block, because the properties were all very large rural mountain properties. Some of them are like 1,000 acres, for example. And so, but many of them burnt down, and our entire property burnt down, and a lot of our stuff burned down, although not the home we were living in, thankfully. But it was like a war zone. We actually never really went back. My daughter was 5 at that time. We spent a period of time thinking that we were sort of going to restore that property and develop different business concepts other than the hotel, because overnight the hotel was no longer possible. You can't bring people out to a hotel that's based on a nature sanctuary when for the next 11 to 20 years, it's going to look like a huge fire just came through.
Right.
Everything changed overnight, not to mention that the structures we were about to build were really no longer insurable. So due to the fire threat. So overnight, the hotel project was not possible, which was the single-minded goal that I had spent more than 10,000 hours on at that point. And so what happened was, we could circle back to this if you find particular interest in it, but there's a whole serendipitous circus of events which lead to us evacuating the fires in real time. There's literally fire, all around. Pretty intense scene. First responders by the dozens, like 50, 75 different first responders flying up the mountain as we're trying to get off the mountain. And just visible fire in many directions. Sometimes getting to roadblocks where it looked like there was a several 100-foot wall of fire before you sort of realize that it's just actually this whole ridge line's on fire. But in the middle of the night, it's dark, there's fire, the adrenaline's pumping. Like, it was a pretty biblical scene.
Yeah.
And so as we are leaving, we leave with this set of oils, which we had developed on the farm. And so at this point on the farm, we always thought that the hotel was a couple of years away from opening, like from the time we started. Like when we started the hotel, we were like, this should take about 3 years. And then, every day for the next 9 years, we always still felt like we were about 3 years away from opening. And so at this point, we knew that the road was long. And so instead of just producing all this food on the farm and doing nothing with it, we started going downtown to sell the food at the local farmers market and kind of introduce ourselves to the locals. Like, hey, we're Be Here Farm and Nature. We exist. We're developing a hotel up in the mountain. It's based on this farm, blah, blah, blah. And so as a result of that, we further develop a private membership club. And that's for people who want to get deliveries or come to the farm and pick up a huge basket of unbelievable produce every week. And along with that program, we developed experimentally with the intention that we were doing R&D for the hotel opening. We developed as a 24-week program. So we developed once a week for 24 weeks, a new product of some kind. They weren't all skincare products, which is what we make today, but they were maybe like a fermented hot sauce. And maybe one was like dried dehydrated fruits. And then maybe one was a skincare product. And maybe one was like a mist for your house. Maybe one was incense, or on and on and on. So for 24 weeks, they got this produce and some product that we made. And so as we evacuate through that serendipitous circus of events that, I'm not going to diverge onto, we leave with the oils for one of those products, which is called the Summer Solstice Serum. And it remains our flagship signature product today. And so all of the oils for this product are in our family's RV as we're evacuating these fires. And we get off the mountain safely. We go to a hotel in San Francisco where we bottle for the first time ever the first 400 units of the Summer Solstice Serum based on those oils that we evacuated with. Everything else burnt down, all of our other ingredients, everything on the farm workshop where we made these products and prepared the things that we use in the garden as well. Because in biodynamic farming, you don't use store-bought fertilizers and pesticides and these sorts of things. You actually produce those yourself as well out of things that you grow or harvest in the wild. And so we actually they're called the biodynamic preparations. And so we actually had a whole little area of those medicines, plus the actual 24 products that we were making, all that stuff, all that actually burnt down. So we evacuated with the ingredients for just the Summer Solstice Serum, which we then bottled 400 units of and launched on our friend's website for the first time ever, becoming a skincare company about 2 weeks after the fires. So that was a tremendous life pivot where within that 2-week period, we realized no longer were we working on the thing that we just spent a third of our lives working on, but that we were now a skincare company and that we had no home to go back to. And we had a 5-year-old who was with us. And so that was about a 2-year process of bouncing around the country to friends and family and Airbnbs, and honestly doing almost like a vacation tour, trying to make life fun for the 5-year-old. Like we were already homeschooling at this point, so that was not a tremendous gear shift. We were now just homeschooling on the road and trying to create life experiences that were like fun enough to get out of the trauma of what just happened in a way. And so as we're doing that journey of displacement, I guess we'd call it, we were introducing the serum to any sort of high-end spas and hotels and different places that might be even just people. I was like Johnny Appleseed with the serum, basically driving around the country. And we ended up in Texas, which is where we settled in 2022, I think. And it's now 25. And so after a period of looking around, we settled in Wimberley, like you said, which is about 45 minutes west of Austin. They call it the Hill Country. And it is my answer to how I got here.
All right. We did that in less than 20 minutes. Actually 18 minutes. So it's a TED Talk. Boom.
Nailed it.
So much in there. The curiosity one for me is because I think this is showing up in a lot of people's lives, at least the people that are the conscious level finders, if you will, like the people that are exploring their consciousness and going deeper into the meaning of life. But like, you had this mission, you knew what you wanted to do. This why and what was so clear. And you worked and it was like, I left my job on Wall Street in Brooklyn. I did this. It led me to this. I had my thought was this, but then full circle serendipitous nature comes in and says, we hear you, but that's not quite what the plan is. Like the fire comes and now you're sitting here going, but this is what I wanted, or this is what I was called to. But there was some level of surrender and acceptance to like it just the beauty of the the journey continued for you. It just brought you in a place that you least expected it, in the way you least expected it, which in my mind is when you know it's real, because like the universe, God, universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, allowed you to kind of guide you in this path towards, well, you thought you were going to do biodynamic farming and hotel, you know, experiences. I have a ton of friends that have gone to Blackberry Farms because I'm in the entrepreneur group in Charlotte and they always go there. And so I know exactly the curated experience you were looking forward to, which is what to me sounds amazing. But then universe says, no, we're going to go this way. Fire happens. You surrender. And all of a sudden it became what it is. Like you allowed it to unfold in this beautiful way. You have this biodynamic. I want to talk about your skincare company because it's unique because it's got a lot of energetic, high energy, vibrational energy attached to it because of the way and manner in which you produce, but also give people that experience. But I just love that story for you. Like, talk to us a little bit about like for a lot of people, this is a really great example. This is why I love these shows, because life took you in a direction you had no idea, but you sort of leaned in. That's what I heard. Like you leaned into what was actually happening. I know it's not that easy, right?
No,
like,
no. It is.
I guarantee you there was a ton of moments in your life where you're like, what in the hell is going on, right?
I mean, why I'm kind of like rolling my eyes is because I'm just remembering myself. And this is what in Steiner's teaching, you might call a fire trial, quite literally. And so, but fire trials don't have to be literal fires. And so in my case, like the blessing and the curse of this situation is that I didn't have a choice.
Right.
There's nothing I could have done differently. In fact, I did way more than most to prepare for that fire. Because we were investing way more time and energy than most into a specific place, which was known to potentially be fire, prone. And so we did what's called, fire safety work and forest restoration work on a 100-acre area surrounding this development. So that was a 10-year effort that actually led to us receiving what's called the Watershed Visionary Award from a local conservation group. So it was a tremendous effort to prepare for these inevitable fires. And yet, when the fires come, there's nothing you can do. And what I've learned from speaking to my friends over the years since then is that everybody has fires. There's just not usually really literal fires, But like somebody comes to me with the situation, I'm like, this dude's on fire. And like I know what to do, right? It's like it's exactly what you said. Like you gotta accept what is. But when sometimes you don't have a choice, and I didn't have a choice. So yes, I chose not to kill myself. Basically, that was a choice I could have had. But because if you were watching me from the outside, you would have understood it if I just like threw myself into those fires, because there's everything that
the whole like literal the literal component of this is why I love the conversation, because it's like, yeah, fires happen in everyone's life. Like the shit hits the fan, everything burns down, and you get to that dark night, and there is a choice. That choice is to surrender to what is or put up friction. And that friction could cause you down a different path. But literally, fire up leveled everything in your life. And I think what's the magic of that, what I want to honor is, yeah, you didn't really have a choice from what was happening, but your choice was to be like, all right, this is what it is. Let's lean into the path. And that beauty of like, oh, now this is how your skincare brand was created in this story that you could have never, ever made up. Yeah, there's no way in hell you could write this with the conscious belief of, this is why I know it works, and this is why I know you're on your path or my path or whatever, is because you can't. I always just say this, like I have a synchronicity book, but I tell my friends all the time about my life story and the path that it's created for me and with me is like, I just say, I can't make this shit up anymore. I can't. Like, there's so many things that happen that are like, you go through this story and you're like, and that's how we got our skincare product, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like a business plan and you wanted to go to school and then you learned and then you got a mentor and a coach and you got a band. You know, the whole like analytical way of doing it was like, no, this is what nature told me I needed to do in the way that I needed to do it, because now it has meaning to it. You are so attached to the reason of why you're doing it now. So I want to talk to people a little bit, well, because that is it. So it's nature's medicine, right?
Yeah. Bananas. Everything you're saying is very funny and true. I never would have developed a skincare company, ever. And we were developing skincare products at that time, but if you could picture a hotel where skincare products are an item in a room or in a spa treatment, imagine how small of a part of the whole organism that skincare product is when you have 30 staff members and 300 acres and a biodynamic farm and a kitchen team and a spa team and a wellness team and a concierge and guests coming and going. Skincare product was not even 1% of that project. And now skincare is almost 100% of my project. So it's quite the shift. It's the fluidity that I do give myself credit for the fluidity within which I, flowed to the best possible solution, like water, which was sort of my response to the fire there. And if I can like shift into more of like a dream like consciousness for a second, there was like, I heard these sort of like behind me, there was the oils in those glass jars, just like clunk, 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 clunk. I'm in my family RV. I'm driving off the mountain. There's fire everywhere. It is kind of like a dream, it's like a nightmare, but it's like, it's not a normal experience. And I have my 2 dogs in the car. I got my wife and my daughter driving in the car in front of me. And it's like dead silent because I'm in this big RV. And all I hear is these serums by me, click, clunk, 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 click, clunk, clunk. And it was like angelic. I felt like I was on drugs. I was like high. I was like floating off this mountain, and the first responders were going in the other direction. And I was like, I almost screamed out the window, like, go get them, boys. Like, woo. Like, I was like having so much fun, and the whole thing was burning down. And I felt so safe and protected. Like, I knew we were going to get off the mountain. I knew that these oils were somehow like, I was like in Noah's Ark. I had 2 of every oil, and these oils were going to like take my family to the next chapter of our life. I just knew it. I knew it all then, in the real time, in the moment, in real time. I don't know how else to say it. And then only afterwards did I then start intellectualizing it a little bit and sort of fall into periods of like confusion and depression and regret and all sorts of different things about, well, why did I do it like this? Or can't believe, how are we going to save the product? Well, what if we develop this kind of business? What if we do this? It'll only cost that much money for this, and insurance for that, and special emergency permits from FEMA for this. And I did that for a period of time. It wasn't like instantaneously the next day I was like, and now we're a skincare company, even though part of me was like that, because like I said, I did the next day go bottle 400 units for the first time ever of this serum and drive down the coast and deliver them to Sun Potion and launch them to the public. That did happen. But in my head, I was still thinking about the hotel and the insurance and the FEMA and all this stuff. And so basically over the next year and a half or 2, as that story unfolded, and I found myself here in Austin, Texas, I would say that I was a skincare company for sure, but I was feeling pretty cloudy about how I was going to really fully leverage and transfer that decade of the most tremendous learning and growth that I've ever experienced to like the next specific line of work. How am I going to really put this value and time to work in a productive way in my life? And I was feeling very cloudy about it. The only way I could say, if I had to put a picture to it, it would be cloudy. And I called my brother, who's a very talented coach and therapist, and shared that with him. And he offered, well, why don't you, like, what's wrong with the cloudiness? Why don't you lean into the cloudiness a little bit and see what it has to offer you? And so I spent one day, quote unquote, leaning into the cloudiness. I took a bath, I read a book, I went for a super slow walk in the woods. I just thought about it being okay that I'm cloudy and what might come from this. And that was it. It was over. Everything lit up for me the next day. I got my first consulting gig like 10 hours later, a multi-month friendship that turned in a consulting gig that's turned into a multi-year, very important friendship. And all the doors started opening. Everything became easy. I was completely onto this next chapter of my life after one day of actually finally getting to the point of like surrender. There was a lot of grace and surrender and flow all throughout that I could be credited for, up until those 2 years. But finally, when I got to this place of needing to like move on with my life and not being able to, in a way, like why was I still sort of held back by it? The actual surrender of leaning into that cloudiness, that was like a 1-day process. So
there's so much wisdom in that. And I think it's how beautiful though, but like how beautiful of an opportunity for you. And in doing that, leaning into the cloudiness, not the what if, why'd I do this, why did this? And what you said was really meaningful for me and for what I feel like the listeners too is, getting out of here and into here, right? I mean, out of like from the analytical and connecting it into a coherent fashion of the knowing. It's almost like you were being drawn, like that moment, that angelic moment in the RV. It's not like, oh, it's clinking and I should do that now. It's like this whole moment just was, you knew you'd be okay. It's kind of like a near-death experience when people get to the plane where they're right at that cusp of like that consciousness of wholeness, of being connected to spirit or source. And they always say those I've studied is like, it's more real than real. And everything felt like it was going to be just fine. Like those moments in life where you just know, there's no thinking about it. It's just a knowing that you can't explain. It's kind of like a synchronicity. You can't explain it with the logical brain, but it happened. Right. So this whole journey is like beautiful. And then you took that lean in and said, lean into the cloudy. Don't solve it. Just lean in, sit with it. And then boom, what happened? Awareness. And then it was super clear. So that's a beautiful lesson for people to move into their own space, because that is, in my mind, how the journey works. And so we could talk forever on this topic, but I do want to talk about the stuff that you are creating and gifting to the world. Do you want to go into the product line, or do you want to go into the program that's going? I could go either way. We could do both. Or you feel.
I mean, there's such a common thread between all of them, which is that
100%. We're going to go full circle on it.
Yeah. I mean, so I could speak to all of them almost at the same time, which is that there's you can't put on my skincare products and then go sit on the couch and eat Doritos and expect them to work. So all of these things are meant to sort of add up to a holistic lifestyle. And holistic lifestyle certainly involves a lot of connection to nature's rhythms. And so our products are like a daily way to connect with that. But we also offer 2 other main sort of avenues that the public could know about, which is we do online 3 months every year. So February, March, and April, every year we do this program called Being Human. And even though it's online and digital, it has the most incredible ability to connect people with nature. In fact, 100% of past respondents to our final surveys have reported that it's increased their connection with nature, that it's deepened their sense of spirituality, that it's increased their joy for life, and a variety of other things. Unanimous, 100% of respondents. And so we basically unpack this in this, and I'll dive into this program for a minute. In the Being Human program, we unpack 6 of Rudolf Steiner's most important teachings, which he calls the daily practices, and we call the 6 levels of mastery. And not that this is going to do you much good, but I'll name them, which because doesn't describe them very much, but thinking, willing, equanimity, positivity, openness, and balance. And so too long to go into any one of them in the lens that Steiner applies to it, but these 6 topics or levels or practices are what we base that program off of. And we spend 2 weeks on each one. We meet every Thursday and every other Sunday, and we meet with 12 different visiting guest speakers who honestly have nothing to do with the core of the curriculum itself, but they're exemplars of mastery. So they're coming from a totally wide range of fields, and some of them are, internationally known speakers and teachers like Asha Nayaswamy, Gabby Reese, Joel Salatin, Del Bigtree, and a variety of others. There's 12 each year, and all of that information is on our website, and people should check it out. I'm sure we'll link to it, but it's beherefarm.com. And so they can find that in our events section. And that's become, I'll just stay on this for one more second, because I'm not like really a digital person. The rest of my life is in the garden, is making products. I'm about sort of tactile, real things.
Yeah.
And so I'm not the first person you'd, imagine to run a digital community, I would say. And yet it's become one of the most important things in my life. It's become such a gift and a blessing, because Steiner's work has such a depth, and when you can unpack it, warmth, although people don't get that at first because it's written 100 years ago and is usually spoken in German and then translated into English 100 years ago. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a barrier to entry a little bit for people to, and it's already deep in terms of the content. And so by the time we get it now, 100 years later, it's very hard for people to digest it. But my partner, who I run this program with, has been studying it for about 45 years now, and he's liquid clear on the entire body of work. He lives it, he breathes it, and you could ask him questions in a regular conversational language and we could have a discussion about it. And so ultimately Steiner's work is very warm and really brings you into your heart. That's ultimately so much of what it's about. And so we've been doing this for 3 years now in this Being Human community. And at the end of the program, we invite people into our alumni program of that. And so some of them have stayed in the program for 3 years, some now 2, some just joined last year. And it's unbelievable. This time of year, this is actually something I'd almost rather talk about than our programs, which is this time of year, because you and I are speaking on the end of Advent, on the cusp of the Holy Week, right before Christmas Eve and New Year's. And so this episode will come out sometime soon after, but that's when we're recording it. And this is a unbelievably important moment in the calendar year for obviously so many people around the world, but specifically in Steiner's worldview, which is the underlying worldview of Waldorf education and biodynamic farming, both of which are sort of like the fruits of those works speak for themselves. If anyone's ever encountered a child who's been raised in a really thoughtful Waldorf environment, or ever eaten a peach or an apple from a biodynamic farm, they know that those systems are really, really incredible gifts to the world. And so right now, as we're launching this program, Being Human, which starts in February, the thing that we're all talking about in our alumni version of this group and our WhatsApp chat is what's called the cosmic in-breath of Mother Earth, which is happening right now, this week. And so each year, the Earth, there's so much, backstory to this, but just to jump into one little snippet of it, each year the Earth sends out a tremendous portion of its energy out into the cosmos, where it becomes informed by like the cosmic source energy, and it reaches out towards the sun and the moon and the stars and the other planets. And we call this spring and summer, when the Earth reaches its, to use Steiner's vocabulary, it would be its etheric and astral body. We have our physical body, but in Steiner's view, we have our etheric body, which is what brings life to it. And we have our astral body, which is what brings like soul and feelings to it. And then humans also have our ego body, which is what brings self-consciousness to it. And so the Earth sends out its etheric and astral body out into the cosmos. And when it does that, the energy rises up the stems and the leaves and the flowers, and we see spring and summer bloom. And then when the earth inhales and this energy comes back down, bringing with it this new light, energy, information, warmth, and love from the cosmos, it brings it back down into the center of the earth. We call that fall and autumn. All the leaves fall, seeds fall, the flowers fall, but the earth is not dead. It's alive. This is actually when it's most alive. So in the winter, it looks dormant, but the earth has actually withdrawn all of its energy into itself. So it's extremely active. It's digesting, it's revitalizing the energy that it then puts into the seeds and the roots of the plants, which bloom again next year. So that type of conversation is the type of conversation we have in the Being Human program at great length and depth, in a way that brings the flow of the year as a human to life in a completely vital and alive way that is much more real for people in this group. Us talking on WhatsApp and on this Zoom, we're having interactions that feel so more real than 99% of the interactions we're having in our regular life about Netflix or global politics or whatever it is. Even the frenzy of the holiday season itself, underneath it, there's a spiritual reality to this time of year, which I was just describing, and about the light and the darkness, and our inner light and our inner warmth, cultivating that and allowing it to bloom, because we are the earth, we're of the earth. And so this process is happening not just in an imaginary sense around us. It's happened. We are that too. That is happening to us too. So right now is the most inner time of year, which is why coming into February, which is why we don't start the program now. This is this time to go inward and reconnect with your inner light. And then in February, in March, in April, we sort of launch people off into the heights of the summer solstice, and they're ready to fly at that point. Just in time, of course, to come back to themselves for the next winter solstice.
I love that. And yeah, the part is the whole. I think a lot of the conversations we have here is like ancient wisdom and modern science together. Like what you described is got lots of science you could go down the road with, and you can also go down the spiritual component of it. It's not or, it's and. It's happening to the world in an energetic way, but also in this etheric way where. So you eloquently described that. And, it's that whole adage of as without, so within, right? And so moving it through is like, we are what the world is at this point. I do want to ask a question, because a lot of my close circles, there's a lot of people feeling intensity right now, a lot of dynamic shifting in the world. We all know that the world is changing rapidly in different ways, but the energetics of it are also. So do you think what is your feeling on like what's happening now versus, 5,000 years ago? And how do you feel that like this program, because this program that you bring people down, co-create together, I think, why it's attracted me, why you and I connected. Like, I feel like now in human civilization, if you will, we're moving through this new era. I feel like now is when these programs are so much more important for us.
Well, I can say from where I sit that I see people with great interest in the work, like almost surprising, and getting so much out of it so easily. It's like people are, for lack of a better word, people are ripe for it. And so that ripeness is when everything should happen. You should always pick a fruit when it's ripe. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I can see the ripeness of the situation. People are ready for the information and eager for this type of living. And like, there's some people in our program who have grown up in a Waldorf environment. And so their lifestyle has been of this sort of what we would call festivals, like this celebratory nature of the changing seasons. That rhythm that I was talking about, the inhalation and the exhalation, that's sort of like a big mother rhythm. That's the annual rhythm. But there's quarterly, monthly, there's the lunar rhythm, there's the daily rhythm. There's even probably quarter daily rhythms, right? Every moment of the day is a changing confluence of cosmic information that's streaming down at Earth and creating our environment. And so these rhythms are celebrated in the Waldorf schedule, just like people celebrate Christmas and Easter. There's festivals throughout the entire year that celebrate these things. And that is like one way. There's probably others, but that is like, it sews you together with that rhythm, that natural flow of the seasonal changes. And in my observation, this is just a hypothesis, not a doctor, but in my observation, the degree to which you're separated from that natural flow is sort of like the health gap in your life. So it can, if you're having stress or disease of some kind, there very well might be lifestyle and environmental things that could be modified to bring you more in alignment with a natural rhythm. Like when I lived in New York City, for example, I was very aware that I had to work a million times harder to quote unquote try to find my center in any of these categories, whether it was diet, quiet, movement, or happiness. I had to really, really schedule a lot of time for those things. But when I lived out in the woods, I felt quite naturally quite balanced, and there's a lot less resistance to have to overcome. And so I had other things I could spend that energy on because I wasn't having to defend that energy or protect that energy quite so viciously. So that is what I think people want. It's not just like only what our program offers. I'm saying I think there's a broader appeal that people want to be in harmony with the flow of the seasons.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so much in this, just connecting to what I've been experiencing as well. One is I am so in tune with biorhythms right now. The programming that's coming up for our membership that we're launching for the Beyond the Pills community is all rooted around rhythm, like restoring rhythm back into. And I love how you're connecting that towards the natural rhythm of the world, because that is the rhythm. Like the rhythm isn't, oh, the world has its rhythm and we have its rhythm. It's like, no, it's connected, and how you have to work to move through those challenges a little bit harder, if you will, because you're in an environment that doesn't allow you to be in nature. Like when I was doing my Peru and Costa Rica journey a year and a half ago, I was more connected in every aspect of my life. And what I love to do, and why this podcast is so important, is that is the token for you to transform your health and your journey. Because when you are in rhythm, just also means coherence to me. When you're in coherence, everything works better. Your body knows what to do. It unlocks its ability to heal. All these things are coming from what we're talking about today, which is getting back into biorhythms that are in nature, and that are connected. So this connectedness, this rhythmic approach, I'm doing it with men's health and testosterone. And I just talked about some of this literally this morning. Someone's talking about melatonin, and I'm talking about the rhythm of why you need it in a certain way and how we can match that to help you, and how she can do it on her own so she doesn't have to do it with a bottle. So I love how this is a full circle conversation. I also believe and think the same as you. I think we're ripe for this. And what I took from that was, I think consciousness as a whole has raised to this place where we are ready. We are ready for this new layer of thinking that's out of analytical, out of information, out of the doing mode, and into this knowing mode and being connected. And I think so. I'm super excited to be able to help in this way and give more awareness to this Be Human project and this programming, because I agree. I think there's more people now than ever that are ripe, as you say, to receiving this information in the right way. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. I'd like to speak to it for one more second.
Absolutely.
No way is it going to be a second though. So, but it's something that we talk about in pretty early on in the program, maybe even within the first week or two. And you're kind of just started talking about it, which is the manner in which we think has changed over time. And you're talking about this heart centered thinking. And of course, there's a spectrum, and of course, there's a pendulum. Things shift over time, and always will sort of swing in a different direction. But once upon a time, we were completely dialed in with nature. We to the degree that we had no way, of course, of thinking ourselves out of that connection. We were almost in a hallucinatory, visionary state where we literally saw angelic and godlike beings when we looked at the stars and the mountains, and we knew that everything was divine, so much so that we never thought about it. But by the time, Greek, Roman, Jesus time, we are a very powerful intellectual people, and a lot has changed, so much that we lost that clairvoyance and that clairaudience and that spiritual sight almost entirely, unless you were perhaps a shaman or a special person in the society. We were now making art of those gods because we couldn't see them anymore. We had to imagine them in our mind and then create things that reflected them. So now we're making sculptures and paintings of the gods instead of seeing them in the trees. And this is like a little bit sort of like the biblical fall as well, because what we've done is we've separated from our divinity. We used to be completely united with divinity, but it was what Steiner and others would call as a gift. We didn't consciously choose that divine connection. There was no choice. It was just there. And that's unfortunately almost like an infringement of free will, right? Because nobody's choosing that unconditional state of love and divinity. We were just born into it and received that spiritual sight as a gift. By the time we're these intellectual powerhouses, we have almost no connection to our divinity. We're now focusing on the scientific revolution, the industrial revolution, the technological revolution, the internet. We're now completely focused on all of these super hyper productive, concentrated, condensed, contracted types of thinking, logical, analytical, cutting, dissecting, that we are like at the bottom of that swing. So we went from one end to the other. And the work that Steiner's trying to bring forward, the phrase that he uses that's so beautiful is, in today's age, and now in today's age, our opportunity is to turn the laboratory into an altar. And so he doesn't talk about spirituality or science. He talks about spiritual science. And so he doesn't think that there's anything wrong with science. He just thinks that it's lacking in the sense that it stops when you can weigh and measure things. That's its boundary. And so he goes beyond the physical boundary and differentiates and defines and understands the non-visible world with just as much rigor and precision in his mind as he does the physical world. And so the unification of these two ways of being, the great thing now is that the incredible opportunity that we have is to freely and consciously choose to live a spiritual life in harmony with nature, God, divinity, however you define it. So in the past, we received it as a gift, and then we had complete freedom and developed our intellect. And now with that intellect, we can consciously choose to work back towards a more harmonized sort of place. And that's one of the essences of what we teach in this program.
I love it. You speaking the same frequencies, because that's the version of what I've been saying is right? It's like, it's not science or spirituality. And I love how you put the two together so simply. It's spiritual science, right? It's both. And at the same time, and it's not like we're awakening back to where we were connected from before, which you so eloquently put. It was a gift. Now it's a conscious choice to remember where we came from and honor where we are. And the way to do that is to align and merge them as one. And that is the essence of where I know I'm going, and where I think humanity is going, is we have this conscious choice point now. to move back to the age of knowing, but not forgetting all the science. It's an and, it's not an or. And I've been using that phrase for a very long time because that's where we're in today. It's not like we're going back to where we came from thousands of years ago. It's we can use what we have. That's why I love beyond as the word, as you said, is why this is beyond the pills. It's beyond where we are today. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. It means that we're moving towards a place that's more whole, right? And that's the essence of this whole process.
Also, in so many ways, non-intellectual, non-analytical, logical ways, they were way beyond us. And so there's all sorts of things from ancient times that were way beyond us. You just have to walk around Rome and you're like, what in the heck?
That's why I love studying indigenous wisdom and shamanism. And I've gone down those rabbit holes and gotten certified is because they're putting the fun, the be happy part is in there too. The shamans are like, we've been waiting for you guys for 1,000 years. We knew this was already coming. Like where you been? And that's why they're imparting this wisdom. They're imparting this wisdom into the Western culture again, to use your phrase, because they already know, because it's already happened. In their eyes, they're dreaming it into existence because they've seen, they're seers, but they're ripe. They understand that the West world now is ripe for this, and we're bringing it into this new consciousness, this new creativity. And this is why I love the ancient wisdom side of it, is because we're not making it up. We're not discovering this again. It's like we're reawakening and re-remembering what we've forgotten through getting up here too much in that pendulum, right? It's all a restoring. Restoring balance is the new age of health, the new age of healing, versus taking away something that is diseased and moving it into restore. So I love that you brought that to full awareness. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So Be Here Now, or BeHereFarm.com is where they can get information about the program, right? And your products?
Yeah, on our events page, you would find our Being Human program. You'd also find our Italy trip, which is wonderful.
Yeah, I want to talk about this probably more because I'm personally curious as well. Like, talk to people about the immersion trips that you take and the one coming up in Italy.
Well, yeah, Italy, this is our third year doing it. So it's one that we love in particular. We've done some other trips as well to Hell's Canyon, Idaho. We do some here in Austin. We're looking into some other countries as well. But this Italy trip is hands down our favorite week of the year. And I mean, Italy is obviously a bucket list destination in its own right. And there's probably 15 or 20, if not more, areas within Italy which could be on the same bucket list. Right. So it's kind of like, and they're almost like different countries. They're so different when you move around from the south to the north, the mountains to the coast. So we go to Umbria, and it's like Tuscany's sort of neighbor, cousin, younger brother, less developed, but so much beauty. And it's kind of an agricultural breadbasket of Italy, which is already quite the breadbasket. And they produce some of the cleanest and purest foods, like their actual sort of, and this is not true almost anywhere in the world, but some of their sort of government official county, city, state, however they define their regions, laws have organic like practices built into them. So that's very rare to ever see that anywhere. But you meet people in this area whose family has been growing like the same beans or the same wine or the same sheep for like 800 to 1,000 years. We went to a farmer's market that all of the vendors were the same as the original vendors, and it started in like the year 1200 or something like that.
Oh, I love that.
I know. It's impossible to even wrap your head around, but so that's the attraction of Italy itself, right? And we call the trip Be Slow, and there's a deep inspiration in that, because there's something called, maybe you've heard of it, there's something called the slow food movement, which it started in Italy. It's now an international grassroots movement. And they promote what they call good, clean, and fair food. Good meaning tasty and culturally significant. Like some old heirloom from a particular place, like a certain pistachio that grows on a certain coast in Italy, much better than it grows anywhere else. That's a perfect example. Clean, meaning, environmentally sensitive, and fair, having to do with like the farm worker safety and well-being and stuff like that. And so this organization started in Italy as a response to the first McDonald's opening up in Rome.
Oh,
And so when fast food tried to move in, they started slow food, and they protested by serving like spaghetti dinners in the streets, which is such a beautiful protest. And so this is a deeply inspiring concept to me. I don't have any other affiliation with this organization, but I love that story. I've attended some of their events over the years. I even certified our original farm in California as a slow food. We got the slow food snail of approval, they call it.
I love that.
Yeah, that's their icon, the snail. And if you're in Europe, where it's most popular, you will see the snail outside various restaurants, ranging from very inexpensive to could be, Michelin star. And that means that there's, focusing on slow food ingredients. And in specific, there's this thing called the slow food arc of taste, which reminds me of my RV with the oils and the Noah's Ark, because there's endangered foods out there, just like there's endangered animals. So there's certain types of potatoes and beans, and even practices like the manners in which we harvest sea salt, or the manners in which we raise reindeer in Scandinavia. There's different foods and what they call food ways, like those practices that are going endangered. And so they put them on this arc of taste, and now chefs are encouraged to feature them and highlight them on their menu so diners can become aware of them. And so you'll sometimes see a little snail on a menu in Europe, and at the bottom it'll say slow food presidio, which is what they call it in Europe, and it's the arc of taste. They're saying this ingredient is so special, you should learn about it, and it's pretty cool. So our whole trip is sort of grown out of this inspiration of slow culture. And so I go with myself, this gentleman named Eben Britton, who's a former NFL player turned yogi and author and podcaster, spiritual teacher, and this woman named Dopuro, who's a medicine song woman and a yogi and a sound healer, cacao healer. And the three of us weave together a week of wellness programming on this private 70-acre organic olive orchard family estate in the mountains. You see nothing but mountains. There's no development or anything, no noises. We're deep on a private Umbrian mountainside in a 1,000-year-old restored home with world-class food and family hospitality. So warm, so sweet. Everybody wants to get hired there by the time the week is out. Like, nobody wants to leave. And so we do that for 7 nights, but also, of course, we leave the property a handful of times to go do some like very well curated Italian, experiences. One of which ends up being, and you could see multiple pictures of this woman on our Instagram at Be Here Farm. But one of people's favorite experiences is this woman that we go visit. We spend the day at her country estate. We cook outside on her wood fire, and she's a slow food pioneer. This like matriarch, just what you'd call like a nonna, like a Italian grandmother, master chef who actually turned down a Michelin star because it would change the lifestyle and stress of her staff so much that she didn't want it. And so she's an amazing person. We spend the day with her. We go to a biodynamic winery. We go visit Assisi and learn about St. Francis, and we hike for several hours above his hermitage to look over the valley. So it's just an epic, epic week where not only is it like way more detailed and curated than any adventure kind of experience vacation you'd ever plan for yourself, because I've been planning this for years now, but every single bite of food and drink, of water, wine, tea, etc., is organic, biodynamic, wild harvested, extremely well sourced. And again, we've been doing that for years, so we're very dialed in with all the people that we work with out there at this point. I mean, we're friends with them. I stay in touch with these people.
Yeah, well, that's also part of the community aspect of this whole thing, is you create to not only give, but like you're giving back to the whole process, which becomes the biodynamic piece. Is like you created a community, you create friends, you create lasting relationships. All of that has an energetic exchange to it. All of that has some level of frequency that makes it what it is, right? So I probably have a bunch of people that would love that, me included. That puts a whole different spin on foodie and health and wellness and balance and all the things, because it ties it into this beautiful thing. So I can't wait to dig in more on that.
Yeah, and of course, if you think about it, I mean, another way of like, if you look back at the end of the conversation, you'll be like, oh, he's doing all the kinds of things you could have imagined happening at that hotel. It's like, I'm the same guy. You know what I mean? I have the same dream. It's just that consensus reality burned down and had to pivot. But underneath it was my dream, which is why it's so important, especially in this teaching I was talking about earlier, the dream line, but just in general. The thing that saved my life after the fires was having the dream, because the dream didn't burn down, just the property did. And so the dream existing still as my North Star is what allowed for that fluidity and that pivot, because the dream provided so much levity. I was in love with my dream so much that I was able to get through the gravity of this fires and all this bullshit that, one would have to deal with in the aftermath of such a thing.
Super drop mic moment. Boom. Because that is the essence, is like when you're clear on your North Star, like super clear, like you didn't know how, you didn't know what was going to happen, but you were clear in that why. And that's what I think just helps people guide, which allowed everything to unfold for you and unfold for others. So thank you for that, for sharing that wisdom in the way that you have today. Beautiful.
Well, it's an embodied resharing of that teaching, which is Paul's teaching on what he calls the dream line. That is really the essence of the dream line teaching, is to have a dream that you love more enough than what you're most afraid of. Otherwise, you'll never get there.
Well, we will make sure that we definitely post the links: BeHereFarm.com, Being Human, and Be Slow Umbria. All really awesome things. If you had to, I always ask this question at the end when this has been a beautiful conversation. So for one, just thank you. Thank you for enlightening your way into this and the wisdom of your life and your story, because I think people learn and grow through story. I know they do. But if you had to give the listeners one thought out of this conversation, or what you wanted to impart today, what would it be?
I think that silence that we gave him was probably a worthwhile moment in the day. I would say cultivate a steady state of silence as often as possible.
I love that. Be quiet. I love that part. Thank you. Thank you, brother. This was awesome. This was a beautiful conversation, full of value and wisdom. Can't thank you enough for being on our show.
My pleasure. And you know that I was enjoying myself because I got all the way to here without even really talking about our skincare products, which is the main way within which people sort of know us and interact with us in the world. So everything that I shared today, really on a daily basis, rhythmically, through my passion and my intention and my rhythms, is worked into these products. And so that is why I think people respond to them, is because they can feel that whole conversation we just had when they put it on them. And
and I love this, because I've been infusing my love and energy into what I didn't know for a very long time. Same way as like I'm putting frequency and love into everything I do. And when I was a pharmacist, that's what I did. I didn't do it intentionally, but that's what people got. And I believe in nurturing the placebo effect in that direction, like nurturing people's ability to heal. And so, yes, I can't wait to look at your products and bring them into, and I always use the do you first principle. So I'm going to start using them and see what happens, so I can give my own experience and share with the world. So yeah, check them out for that's what we're really going to talk about. And that's why I love these conversations, because we both had that intention, and this beautiful conversation came from that. So
Yeah, that's how I said that's how you know it was a good one.
Awesome. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Until next time, stay well.
Thanks for joining me today on Beyond the Pills. If our mission to deprescribe 10 million unnecessary medications resonates with you, share this episode, subscribe, and leave a review. Whether you're a practitioner or someone ready to reclaim your health, visit rx2wellness.com for free resources to begin your journey. Together, let's go beyond the pills and co-create a world of vibrant health and true healing. Until next time, live better and stay well.